Welcome to Darkly Lit, where we search for the darkness underneath the smell of cotton candy and the sounds of calliope music. I'm your host, Kayla Berry, and, oh, wait, that's not true. I just got married, so now I'm Kayla King. So I have to get used to saying that. We have my one co-host, Jesse Reyes, or Sage.
Jesse Reyes, or you can call me Sage. That's me.
And then to my immediate right is my husband and also host, David King.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right up to Cougar and Dark's Pandemonium Shadow Show.
So Camptown ladies sing this song.
Doo-dah, doo-dah.
Camptown racetrack 5 miles long.
Oh, doo-dah day.
Oh no, I cannot wait to talk about that ending. Oh my god.
Laugh, will you? Laugh!
Oh my god. That was so loud.
Sorry.
It's October. So,
the best month of the year.
A fine month for boys.
It's the Halloween month. So,
it is the best month of the year.
So we decided to read something Halloween-y like we did last year. But this time, it's a classic novel called Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury.
I'm looking at a picture of him right now with a cat.
Aw, that's a cute kitty, actually.
Yeah.
This is different from his other works, I would say. I mean, not in terms of writing.
Is it, though?
Okay, not in terms of writing, but Ray Bradbury is most well known for his sci-fi work, where this is clearly a dark fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
This, by the way, this came out in 1962, so, which is definitely fitting for when the book is set.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give the summary, David? Because I know this is like one of your favorites. This was the one you actually introduced this to.
I suggested this one, and that's because this one has stuck with me. I tend to be more of a fan of Bradbury's dark fantasy writing as opposed to his sci-fi. Mm-hmm. Nothing against sci-fi. This is the stuff that appeals to me. And it's books like this that I feel like give him the nickname Mr. October. Mm-hmm. So the story is set in Greentown, Illinois, sometime in the late 40s, early 50s. And it focuses on two boys who live right next to each other, Will Holloway and Jim Nightshade, both of which were born in close proximity to each other. Like I think Jim is slightly older and Will is slightly younger.
No, Will Holloway is born on October 30th at 11:59 p.m. and
Jim Nightshade is at 12
midnight
on October 31st. That's their shared birth, or something like that.
Yeah, I thought it was like 12:01.
Oh yeah,
12:01. That's right. They're like a minute apart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these two boys are living in there, and they're both kind of hitting. We'll get to that in a minute. They have a tight friendship, but they're starting to kind of pull apart a little bit as Jim is constantly looking forward to being older and, stretching his wings, and Will is a little bit more reserved and wanting to, hang about in sort of their childhood. And, sure enough, around, October the 23rd, I want to say, a carnival rolls into town by way of a old, locomotive, and Cougar and Dark's Pandemonium Shadow Show comes to town. But this carnival is not your usual carnival. It is headed by a seemingly an illustrated man who has some sinister intentions, and when the boys go to explore the carnival, they find the merry-go-round that has some very unusual properties. When it runs forward, it's able to age people for a year for each rotation, but if it runs backward, it de-ages them a year with each rotation. This leads to a number of them getting sort of caught up in a sort of battle for their own souls in an odd way, and a battle sort of with each other, with their friendship. Also getting involved is Will's dad, Charles Holloway, who is the library janitor of town, and his struggle with the fact that he is a much older father. He's in his,
he's 54.
He's in his 54, and he feels like he's feeling his age. Like he's feeling like life has kind of passed him by, and he yearns sort of for, to be a younger man and a younger father to his son. It seems odd to him that he had his son late. Anyway, the summary is going on for a long time, and I apologize. Basically, they have a series of mishaps as this carnival zeroes in on them and wants to sort of bring them into the fold to either for some sinister purpose, and but the boys and Charles Holloway have to figure out what to do in order to confront this new menace to not only them but for the rest of the town and the townsfolk.
All right, so let's begin with what is our general feelings about this book as a whole?
Well, I love it. I love this book.
How about you, Sam?
This was both a lot of fun, also very, very immediate. It was like, oh, childhood friends, oh, they're inseparable. Yes, I ship it. But,
I knew it. I knew as soon as I was reading.
I was like, opening the book, I was like, man, I hope I can find something to ship because that'll help me get through it faster. And I'm like already starting way too late into the month to read it. And immediately I was like, yes, okay, good. But also, with like the father, Charles, I would get two parts where I'm like, I'm going to go eat some ice cream or something because I'm going to have like an anxiety attack because this is hitting me in all those places that I like to avoid. Like growing old and like mortality. So this was a lot of fun, but also very painful and difficult to read.
Yeah. I
Heavy.
I feel like, I'm trying to word this nicely. I like the story. No, as a story, it's a great story. And a lot of the writing is good, but then there's points where it feels unrealistic to me, or there would be parts that would really bother me. Like there is a point, I think the one part that bothered me, and I actually was talking to David while I was reading this, or not reading it. Okay, let me rephrase. So I actually did read it as a book a year ago, but I wanted to try something different. So I listened to the audiobook version, which actually I was able to pick up more stuff from when I did the first real reading. And it gets to the part where, Charles is explaining to them what he thinks, let me make this clear, what he thinks the carnival actually is. And they spend like a good 3 or 4 chapters to this. But here's the funny part. How Charles does not know any of this. Charles is just pulling this out of his ass based on his own. No, come on.
It's an educated guess. You get the impression he's done a lot of reading, and there's even a point in there where he says, look, I'm not saying that, how do I know this? I just know.
But then he goes on, he's like, what about all those freaks? Chances are they're based off they got turned that way based off their sins. I'm like, what are you talking about? Where did you get that from? You just pulled that out of just out of assumption.
Well, I mean, he's making a lot of assumptions, and that's fair. He even says this is a theory, but yeah, and then he goes on and talks about the theory.
I think what bugs me about this part though is why couldn't this be shown? Why couldn't a conversation between him and Dark happen, or something like that, or they listen in or get a glimpse of that? This, I mean, it's already a very descriptive, very shown book. Why do we have 3 or 4 chapters of just Charles going on about his fan theories?
I don't think it's fan theories. That's the whole point. He knows. He feels it in his bones.
I don't think we're supposed to know what exactly this carnival is. These are a bunch of ideas and theories, and we're just gonna decide which of those makes the most sense to us.
Right.
The way I read those parts, and I had to read through them very quickly because I was only halfway through the book last night when we were like, "Oh, we're gonna have to record tomorrow instead." And I'm like, "Okay."
To be fair, I was about there as well, but I spent a good chunk of the morning today reading the last half of it. Rereading it. I've read it before.
I was about 2/3 of the way through, and then you're like, "We're doing it tomorrow." I'm like, "Oh, gotta listen," and I'm just like, I listened to all.
So we're all in the same boat, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But the way I kind of took that, I kind of like this idea, and I like when stories do this, is the universe is kind of like what you make of it, and what you believe, you're gonna believe is true. So I don't know, that's the way I was thinking. He's like, this is what I feel, this is what I believe this is, and thus for it is this.
But then it turns out he's completely right. All his fan theories are completely right.
Well, but again, the way that the story is set up is it feels like it feels like when logic creeps into it, I think of it in a lot of ways like what happened in a house with the clock in its walls. Remember how the magic, like, when in that book, which we covered a while ago, Lewis had to come up with his own way of doing a spell, and then it worked.
Okay.
Like, think of it that way. Think of it like, this is I feel like this is a story where it's intuition versus emotion to a degree.
Yeah.
And sort of the power of the spirit versus the power of the mind, as opposed to that. And it's like,
okay.
And to me, it seems like, I mean, we can have different opinions on this, but I personally feel like, he makes these theories, and I don't feel like he's just pulling them out of his ass. I feel like he's got all these books. He's been reading all these things about, like, darkness and proverbial stuff. There's a whole list of things. And he ties it back to the fact that these people have lived hundreds of years. And of course, yeah, he's making educated guesses, but, the one of the things that they talk about in the book is how he spent years at this library sort of almost telling this whole story to himself. Like, there's the whole idea that he's been, spinning yarns for a long time and that they've always vanished. And there's this manic sort ofness of him laying this out here. And for once, it's like almost it all coalesced and came together. It's a magical realism kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I like that kind of stuff in fiction when it's done well. And I think that's fine here because it's just him going like, everything, this is me, this is my intuition, this is my guts, this is my bones talking. This is what, and I'm trusting my gut on this one. And a lot of people and the idea is that when facing something like the carnival and it's like inexplicable, like low key horrors, like the stuff that's wrapped in this disguise of joy and spectacle, like, you gotta trust your intuition here. These characters trusted their intuition. It's what got them trust their guts, and it's what got them out of a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. So, here's Charles Holloway, who's been doing this for a long time, trusting his intuition, basing it off some of what he gets, and sort of that emotional logic, as opposed to the rational logic, ends up being true. And I think that's interesting, personally.
I also think there's a couple of, like, parts. If it were any other story, I don't think it would have worked, but but with this story it worked. Like, that extra detail about, like, it's Will Holloway and Jim Nightshade, very ridiculous names, and they just happen to be born 2 minutes away from each other. But the fact that I can accept this because the way it's written, it is a dark fantasy. Yeah. It has very flowery language. A lot of when I first read it, one of the things that bothered me was, wow, all the people talk not really realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But then
everybody talks like Ray Bradbury writes.
Yes. Yes.
I had a hard time with the boys being like, boys don't talk like this.
Yeah, I know. But
the parts I enjoy where they're just like, heck, Jim, heck.
Yes. I think, but
Will. Will.
I had to think of it. I had to think of it like, this is not set in a real world. This is set in its own universe. Like, clearly not, like, it is a fantasy. Like,
it's through the lens of this heightened reality.
I mean, there's
where everybody talks in metaphor.
Like, there's a point where
an allegory.
Like, there's a point where the barber comes out and he's crying. He's like, I smell cotton candy. I haven't smelled cotton candy in so long. Sorry, I'm just so tearful. And I'm like,
Didn't they express?
I mean, they did explain
that he cries at everything.
Yeah,
Mr. Corsetti.
They did. It's just such a interesting, strange detail, but it works for this because it is a fantasy. Like, right. Again, there's some certain things that would not have worked in any other story, but because this is the whole way they talk and the way that the whole world feels is consistent. It's like, okay, this isn't real life. This is Ray Bradbury's fantasy. Right.
And that's what I kind of do. I suspend disbelief and go, okay, I just gotta, it's like reading a book by Shakespeare. Like, no one actually talks like that, but the story still comes across, you know? So I think about it that way, and that kind of helps. And I just enjoy I really enjoy the way he writes about certain things, especially when it gets to the spookier stuff. Mm-hmm. Like when he describes the carnival rolling in. I love that bit. That part's so good. Again, you notice it's pretty noticeable pretty early, like on a point when they meet Tom Fury, the lightning rod salesman, and here's the lightning rod salesman describing why he does this, and it's got this very Bradbury-esque way of describing
like,
how...
no salesman talks like that.
No, he's talking about how he carved symbols in order to fight the lightning and stuff. I'm like, what the heck? But yeah, It's just, he's a magical man in a magical world where magic happens. He tapped 2 islands. He played a counterspell. Wait.
But, I mean, yeah. Now, now this is meant for, it's hard to say it's meant for children, but, like, it technically is meant as a children's book, but there is horrific imagery in here that is a bit, it's kind of frightening, and it's a little...
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Let's say a 12-year-old would read this right now, now, I think there's some imagery, well, maybe not 12, that's a little too older. Okay, an 8-year-old, if they read some of this, they'd be like, what? What is this?
I can't picture an 8-year-old reading this. I don't think this was...
I can't either.
This is not... I don't think this is... Like, the Halloween Tree is a kid's book.
Okay, so...
This is not a kid's book, in my opinion. This is... Well, because it drips so much with nostalgia. Like, okay, that's the main thing I wanted to say. This book is, I think, writes about nostalgia in a way, and it captures the feeling of nostalgia in a way that not a lot of books do. Like, you mentioned Mr. Crosetti crying at the thought of cotton candy, because it's, like, bittersweet. It's that idea of distance and looking back on something that you remember, but there's that bittersweet feeling. And Charles Holloway is nostalgia, basically. His character is that. And the way that the writing feels like nostalgia for something else.
But I know it's been a requirement for, like, middle school kids and such, which, like you
middle
said,
school I get, but, like,
even then, like, I feel it's a book that feels like it should be for kids, but you're right. I think it's more of an adult book because of that nostalgic. Like, kids aren't exactly nostalgic, where adults are absolutely nostalgic. I don't know.
I think you could read this at the 2 different ages that we have, like, the 2 boys at, and then when at our age now and older.
Mm-hmm.
And you would relate to the different characters differently.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm trying to remember. The boys, they're
13.
13.
They're 13. They're about to turn 14.
That's right.
They just turned.
No, because
Their birthday's coming up, because it's like the last,
okay.
I think it's October 24th. When the book starts.
Because that's when it says Halloween came early. It came in on October 24th, and I think that's the day that the train comes in for.
Right. This all takes place over the course of a weekend, from Friday to Sunday.
So it's all just before Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of in terms of the story itself, or like, I'm trying to figure out where to begin. Because there is a lot that happens. Like, there's a lot that happens in this book.
Well, what's a good place to break this down? Like, or maybe we could try something else too. Do any of our listener questions, could any of those lead to specific discussion points? Because I feel like we always talk about points on this show, but then we don't. We've talked about things that people end up asking us questions about later, and we just kind of go, oh, but we talked about that. So why don't we actually approach it with maybe some of the questions first? What do you two think?
We could do that and try, and then if we feel there's anything that we didn't discuss that we still want to touch on, we could do that at the end.
I definitely want to talk about Will and Jim. I want to talk about Charles Holloway. I want to talk about the whole carnival. As those are like the 3 main beats I want to talk about for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like how we feel about those things and stuff like that.
In that case, there is one question that kind of goes with that. This was from Username, and the question is, thoughts of the themes of coming of age and accepting the world changing with time. And I feel like, that is the main theme of the novel, is the idea of accepting your age, or wanting to be older, wanting to be younger.
Feeling like you're stuck where you are, looking ahead when you're young, and feeling like you're stuck where you are, looking behind when you're older. Again, this nostalgia with a melancholy, with the melancholy tinge that nostalgia should have. And that's like what this book is. And
each of the characters has a different relationship to that. With Jim, he wants to be older. Will's
he's fairly content with where he is.
Mm-hmm. Will's kind of interesting. He's in the middle. Like, I feel like of these 2 characters, of this trio, he's in the middle. Charles has the longing he has that longing for youth. Jim has that longing to, like, break free of being considered a kid. And Will is just kind of in the middle. He's okay where he's
the way
at.
he was described to me, and like when they were describing Jim as like he sees things coming, like he knows already, whereas Jim is, you know, he'll be surprised to see his shadow, like he's just kind of like going with the flow of things, or like taking it as it comes, and that's just natural to him. So he would have no need to look back or look forward, and he's just in the moment, kind of precious.
It is, right?
I think it's also the fact he wants to maybe stay where he is. Cause that was one thing that, does come up along. He's like, don't leave me, Jim. That was like his worry whenever Jim wanted to be older. He's like, no, I don't want you to leave me. Yeah,
he doesn't want to lose his friend. He wants things to stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's his yearning. That's his, want, which of course is another thing that the carnival kind of preys on.
Yes.
So.
What do we think about the carnival?
There was a question about the carnival, wasn't there?
Actually, there's a couple of questions about, the carnival. But I feel like, cause, one of the things is it is a creepy carnival, and, Dobie does actually ask, how influential do you think this was on other creepy circuses?
This is the most influential thing on creepy circuses. Are you, I mean, no, I mean, I can't imagine anything post this that didn't draw either intentionally or just by the zeitgeist of it bleeding into other media, the idea of the Dark Carnival. I feel like this really catapulted the idea of the Dark Carnival that rolls into town, may look colorful and friendly on the outside, but has absolutely sinister and malicious intent on the inside. So many stories and so many themes owe themselves to Cougar and Dark's, circus and Crazy, I will eat your soul. Like butter on toast.
I definitely got that. It made me think of that circus from We're Back, and like every time I was reading Mr. Dark, I was like, oh, I keep picturing him as what's his name, Screw-Eye?
Professor Screw-Eye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the type of character that I kept picturing, just covered in illustrations.
That's a good image, actually.
Yeah.
I kind of like the fact, that's another interesting thing too, because like the Illustrated Man is usually just a side act, but in this case, the Illustrated Man actually runs the carnival. Like, this man covered in tattoos is like one of the head men, which I find kind of fascinating.
I actually think it's interesting. We don't get a lot of Mr. Cougar, but he's the other guy in charge, and most of the time we get him as a boy, and then later we get him as Mr. Electrico.
Which is interesting because, actually, that was influence from Ray Bradbury's childhood. He visited someone named Mr. Electrico at a carnival, and
he was 12 years old in 1932, and he went to a carnival and saw Mr. Electrico.
And apparently Mr. Electrico told him directly, "Live forever!"
Apparently he went back a little while later, and Mr. Electrico remembered him, introduced him to all the other like carnival, like sideshow carnies, like the freaks, and I read this in the afterword in this book. And, actually, let me read that part verbatim real quick.
Okay.
Yeah. I can find it. It's back here. He's talking about why the carnival sort of crept into this story and what he thought about. So yeah. So I'll start with, the second paragraph. Next day, I ran back to the carnival grounds to find out just how to do that to live forever. Mr. Electrico introduced me to all the carnival freaks behind the scenes, including the hippo lady, the human skeleton, and the illustrated man. We sat on the beach and he listened to my grand ideas about my irresistible future. When I had run out of gas, Mr. Electrico said, "We've met before." "Oh, no, sir," I said. "This is the first time I've ever talked to you." No, he said. "You were my best friend at the Battle of the Ardennes forest outside Paris in October 1918. Were wounded and died in my arms. And here you are with a new face, new name, but the light coming from your eyes is the soul of my lost friend. Welcome back to the world." I wandered out of the carnival stunned, and stood by the rushing horses of the carousel, listening to the calliope wheezing Beautiful Ohio, and wept. I knew that something amazing had struck me with electric fire and changed me forever. Within 8 weeks, I began to write. I wrote every day after that for the next 65 years.
Clearly that carnival, that experience, had such an influence on him. And
it's kind of beautiful. And he even later in that same sort of afterward apologizes to these, like, if the real Mr. Electrico happens to read this, I want to apologize right now for taking the inspiration for you and turning a noble and good human being and turning him on, doing the dark mirror reflection as an evil carnival leader. But that was my inspiration. He had to do the flip side of what he took from carnivals, which was, something beautiful and joyous to him.
So, have you ever read something and there's an idea from it and you're like, God, I wish I would have came up with that? Because it's such a great idea. I think the carousel with the whole, if you ride backwards, you become younger. If you ride forwards, you become older. God, that's such a great idea. It's one of those ideas I'm like, I wish I would have came up with that. That's so good.
That's wonderful. No, it's such a good linchpin. The carousel is so symbolic, and I love that. And actually, I really like the explanation that kind of gets brought up later on, in that the way the carnival kind of started is, if you think about it, one person realized that carousel to the thing, invited their friends, and suddenly a carnival grew as a result. I'm like, there you go. There's the origin of Cougar and Dark's Pandemonium Shadow Show. I also really like the way that sort of Mr. Dark controls the carnival with his illustrations, with the tattoos on him. Like, he's able to do it when he clenches his palms that have Will and Jim's faces inscribed on them, and they feel headaches. Like, I thought that was really cool. Like, and then of course the fact that when he's ultimately killed, the tattoos fade and suddenly all the carnies are free.
That was kind of cool. It's almost like a weird, like not like voodoo dolls is kind of what it made me think of, but like voodoo tattoos, I guess.
Oh, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, like when he pinches his wrist to kind of punish the Dust Witch for having failed to kill Charles. Yeah. Oh, there's of the Carney folk, there's like a few that get mentioned. Obviously, the skeleton, the dwarf that used to be Tom Fury. It's the three main carnies are the Illustrated Man, Mr. Cougar, and the Dust Witch. I want to talk a little about the Dust Witch.
By the way, the imagery for the Dust Witch is so creepy. I love it.
I love the Dust Witch. I like that she flies around in the balloon like a demented Wizard of Oz. That whole thing where she is flying around trying to mark their houses, and she gets in like a chase/fight with Will in the balloon. That's such a good scene. That's such a good series of chapters. I love that bit.
I love that because he was protecting Jim.
Yeah. No, that was great. Their friendship is the best. Yeah. They're caring for each other.
It's like they're the complete opposites, and I think having the opposite birthdays and all that are two sides, like opposite.
The light half, the dark half.
I think one of the things that I liked was the way Will's father described them as one wearing the black hat and one wearing the white hat. So that made me think of like old westerns where like that's how they would distinguish. Oh, this is our hero. He has the white hat and the white horse, and that's our villain with the black hat and the dark horse.
Right. And I like that Jim, despite being the sort of the dark one, is not a bad guy. He's got these urges. He's got impulse control issues. But then again, I mean, he kind of encourages Will to do the same. When Will's around Jim, Will is more willing to do, more absurd things. They really do complement each other, though.
Yeah, because Will is one to hold back, and even with times with Jim kind of grounds him. He's like, wait, hold on a sec. But then Jim will sometimes like, let's just do it. Come on. Like, what do you got to lose? Like, like he propels him forward, where Will will hold Jim back when he knows it's not time to move forward.
Right. But yeah, the carnival, like, I honestly, the carnival is just super, super influential. Its imagery, its themes. You were telling me earlier that you thought you kind of wish that more of the carnival had been utilized in the story.
I kind of
like, not
do.
just the Hall of Mirrors, the freak tent, and the carousel, but like, there's a Ferris wheel described at one point. I know Ray Bradbury had originally based a lot of this off a short story he started to write called Dark Ferris, which was about a Ferris wheel that did something similar to the carousel.
Yeah, the whole story revolves around the carnival itself, and it would be cool to utilize that a bit more or see more of that. I don't know.
Like more of the carnival itself. Because the thing is, the carnival influence is definitely all over, especially when the carnies themselves are out parading around town.
Oh yeah, and that is a great moment too. I just think, I don't know, I kind of just wanted a little bit more of it. Not saying like the story is bad or anything.
Oh yeah.
But like, I really loved, I don't know, I've always been a fan of dark carnivals. I mean, The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern, such a great story, and I love the way they utilize it. And actually, they took inspiration from this. Aaron Morgenstern took a lot of inspiration from this.
That really doesn't surprise me. It's like deep diving into the stuff, because you see like in that book, you see like every exhibit.
Oh yeah.
Every sort of wonder that this carnival offers, the Night Circus offers. Where
with this carnival, it's like, I kind of wish I could have seen more of it. Like, there's like,
I wanted to know more about what was in the wax museum.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have made the book twice as long with how descriptive he gets.
Yeah, he gets really descriptive.
So if you read The Night Circus, by the way, I'm gonna make a recommendation here. We're probably not gonna do this one on Darkly Lit, because it's not necessarily a horror story, but
it's not a horror story.
But much like this, it's a fantasy romance, and it's The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern is very good, and I feel like does what this book wasn't necessarily doing, which was actually going into the carnival itself and looking at things. Mm-hmm. Admittedly, I think I prefer the storyline for this better, but the imagery in The Night Circus is incredible, and it's its own animal in itself, so worth checking out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, any other thoughts about the carnival and the carnies? I mean, do we believe what Charles is saying, that these people, they don't just like consume souls, they like pick out people and like lure them in and then prey off of their insecurities and their emotional troubles and their pain, and use that to kind of power to keep themselves around?
It made sense to me that they would target those people that, had reason to long for something, because there's always that like, oh, I hate whatever, I'm gonna run away to the circus, even kind of idea. I'm gonna run away to the carnival and I'm gonna travel with them and life's gonna be swell. And it turns out not to be so swell. So that made sense to me. And just why wouldn't, like, because we go to the carnival to have a good time, to feel good, and to just be like, yeah, this is awesome. But the reverse side of everything good is going to be bad. So I don't know. That made sense to me of like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that.
I think you're making some very good points. I think that sums it up nicely. It just, I like that we learned that this carnival has been through here before, but just no one remembers it.
Yeah.
Because it comes through in different generations. Every, 40, 50 years?
Something like that.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what other places it's visited.
It does stick to Green, like it's that town specifically, right?
That town specifically, but like I think it's probably been to other places, but he found old issues of the paper, the newspaper that talked about the show visiting and old handbills and things like that. The
one thing I mentioned this to David, so Charles Holloway isn't the librarian, he's the janitor for the librarian. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been easier if they just made him a librarian, to be honest. I don't know why he said, make him a janitor, because it's like it's like if he was, it makes sense. He's old enough to be a librarian. It could make sense why he would be a librarian. Plus his research skills as a librarian would, like, he can research like a librarian. Like he reads, he knows that library like the back of his hand.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that unfitting that he's a janitor, but yeah, I agree. Like, I think I think that he could have just as easily been a librarian too. And actually, in the 1983 movie adaptation of this, he is the librarian. They just make him the librarian.
The way I took that was sort of like, because like his whole character is like looking back on life and like his choices and whatnot. So for me, I read it as like, yeah, he's always loved the library, but he never became a librarian because he didn't make the right choices. So he's to at least still be in there. He's a janitor because he still wants to be close to the library, but he kind of failed in like, it's to mark his failure. He didn't become a librarian, but he's at least a janitor at a library.
Yeah,
he does.
That's a good point.
It does seem like he
imagine
constantly...
like back then, janitor of the library, I'm sure he was also doing would-be librarian tasks as well.
I concur, but I think you raise a very good point. Just this sort of feeling of inadequacy that Charles feels throughout the book.
Because I feel like in the start of the book, we're kind of meant to feel bad for this old man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, this poor old man just hanging out in the library, wanting to run after his boys and after the boys and join them, but he's too old.
He's really concerned about his age.
Oh yeah.
And he's really like, man, we had Will too late.
Well,
now I can't.
he had Will.
I
too
had
late.
Will too
I
late.
can't even play baseball with him.
Mhm.
Can't build a
Everyone
tree
thinks
house
my
with
wife
him.
is my daughter.
Yeah, clearly there is an age gap between him and his wife.
I want to assume it's like an 11, 12-year age
Most
gap,
likely.
maybe.
I
Oh,
would
it's
say.
probably like 20. Like back then.
Good point. Oh, good point. Good point. No, I mean, that's actually pretty significant.
Because he had Will when he was 40.
He was 40.
He was 40, that's right. So yeah, his wife could be 20 and had Will.
Oh my god.
We're never told her age. We're never told how old she is. But that one of the things that is said is everybody thinks his wife is his daughter.
Yeah, I forgot about it a bit. And then Jim's dad's out of the picture.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's
We don't find out what happened to him.
Yep.
and we don't need to. Like that.
Yeah.
That says that speaks words.
Him being
But that adds to to Jim's character of like why he's on this like much more matured level of like knowing there's like seeing what's coming. Like he doesn't have a father. Like he didn't have that shelter, that protection of
right.
having a father. Like he had to learn from his mother. Like, oh, okay, we can't all have good things.
And his mother's, as at least the impression I'm getting, his mother, I think he feels smothered a little by
Mhm.
her. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's overprotective.
Yeah, and it makes sense why she would be. But
Well, as it described, she lost 3 children before him.
but it's because but you can also tell that Jim genuinely loves his mother, and
Mhm.
actually there's been a few times where she's actually used like as a bargaining chip, and that's like what gets Jim. And even Will used it at one point, and he's like, you should put he tells him to put the weather vane up on his house, because it's not weather.
The lightning rod.
Lightning rod, thank you. Because the salesman tells him there's going to be lightning striking Jim's house. So Jim's like, but I want to see lightning. I want a show to happening. Then Will says, well, think of your mother. And then that's like, okay. Then that pushes him to do that.
Yeah.
Clearly, his mom is not, I don't want to say a sore spot, but like, she's definitely someone who's genuinely important to him, despite the fact you can tell she does kind of smother him. But she's also all he has, and he's all she has.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny.
What?
The lightning rod got installed, and never once did they describe the lightning storm fully coming to the town. It rained that Sunday, the Sunday when there was lightning and thunder when the storm finally hit on the Sunday, but it wasn't a big crazy storm like Tom Fury saw. So I'm thinking he bilked them.
Well, he gave it to them for free, so it's not like he scammed them, you know?
No, good. Oh, you're right. He did. He gave it to them for free.
I thought the carnival was the storm, and obviously Will was targeted.
Oh my god, I didn't think about it.
Tom Fury was he was ahead of a metaphorical storm.
And just before the carnival comes in, he actually around the time when the carnival comes in, he actually takes down the lightning rod. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't think about that. That's such good symbolism.
Oh, I love Ray Bradbury for this reason.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That's good.
Yeah, the carnival is the storm. And you know what, come to think of it, the first person claimed by the carnival is the lightning rod salesman.
It's true.
Because he wants to get into a block of ice with a beautiful lady.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
That's his downfall.
I guess.
Well, I mean, when you're on the road, you're making your lightning rods, and you got no one to help you with your own rod.
Hey, that's not a problem for the people at the theater.
No.
I do want to talk about that in a second, but I want to really quick find out if we have any other questions.
Oh no, we got in terms of the circus or just in general?
Just in general. I mean, that's the one question about the carnival.
Should we just go through the questions and
let's go through the questions, and then I want to raise some points because that to me really illustrates a certain dichotomy in the book is the way that both Jim and Will feel about the discovery of the theater.
Mm-hmm. Actually, username does ask, how has the core story aged with the fall of circus culture in America? I mean, in one sense, he is kind of right about circus culture, because carnivals were huge, like, so much bigger during, like, the 30s and 40s, and there has been quite a decline, especially, like, we don't have freak shows or anything like that.
Right.
Freak shows died. Well, okay, so here's my thing with that question. For me, a carnival and a circus are actually two different things.
That's true.
Like,
that is true, because a circus is more...
I feel like this was definitely a carnival that also had, like, its tents and, like, freak show.
It had circus elements.
It had circus elements, but I wouldn't have called it a circus because circuses don't have rides.
That's true. That is true. I mean, they do have like pony rides or like elephant rides.
Yeah, but not
like, this is
not like a carousel or.
No, this is clearly a carnival, and I mean, we still have carnivals, but they're more like state fairs.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like the county fair and whatnot. For me, it didn't affect it like age. Like it didn't feel like this is an old. Obviously, it was set in like an older time. We definitely got that feeling, but I could definitely see because you have those like smaller little carnivals that will roll in, and you got like the really dinky, questionable rides, like the zipper. I fucking love the zipper. So I could still see like a creepy kind of like questionable carnival like rolling into town present day. Like, so that in that sense, like the story was still fit for me. Like it didn't feel old.
Same. Is it something
there's a different atmosphere to carnivals now though than the because when you think about it, when a carnival rolled in, it was something to be excited about because you didn't have that much else to do, right? This is a traveling spectacle. You get a chance to see all kinds of weird and strange and exotic things. So there's a much bigger deal about that then, but now it's so easy for people to access stuff, anytime that it's not like carnivals don't have the same appeal unless you really want to go out and ride a questionably, sturdy Ferris wheel or buy or play an entirely expensive and potentially rigged carnival game. And I certainly don't see
always rigged. They're always rigged.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're there to get your money.
And like the traveling like the idea that's presented in this book is like there's a real sense of like even when the dark carnival like during the day there's a sense of wonder that kind of comes with the nostalgia of the carnival. You don't get here because like you think about the mirror maze and the wax museum beyond it and stuff like that. It sounds really cool. And then you go to a carnival today and it's like obviously a trailer with a flat like front on it, and maybe there's like a dark ride or a fun house, but it's just like the most like hollow kind of cheap thing, you know?
They're not as mysterious or like I guess mysterious is the only word I can think of.
Mysterious, alluring?
Yeah, they're not as magical.
No, there's a magic to the old time. And then again, this is something coming off of an old train, like an old steam-powered locomotive. And that's mystique itself, the carnival train rolling in and unpacking its menagerie of wonders.
I think also the reason why it can still resonate with us, or the story resonates with us too, is yes, it is a book of its time, but at the same time, it feels like this is a book set in a specific time period. And people know about this time period. They know about carnivals, especially in American history.
Yeah.
I think the reason the story resonates with us is because at least a lot of the characters have relatable things. I think every one of us at one point, in one way or another, has wanted to be older or younger or desired something.
Or wanted things to stay the same when everything was changing around
exactly.
you.
What the characters are facing internally, it doesn't matter what time you existed. That's something everyone faces growing up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was a good question. It definitely gets me thinking about, man, now I just want to go to like a really want to go to like an old turn of the century carnival, see what that would have looked like.
I wish, like, well, yeah, carnival, but like to see just like what the circus used to be like, this huge fucking grand spectacle with like all these performers and all these animals and just how fucking crazy it was. Like, I would love to travel back in time and see that.
That would be so cool.
Oh,
man.
I like that would be a good reason to travel back in time. It's like to be there when the carnival rolls in and to actually experience that.
I feel like today the only thing that is comparable in terms of wanting to get that kind of sense of wonder and spectacle in a carnival or a circus is going to see Cirque du Soleil. Think about it.
Kind of.
And like on a like. No, that doesn't even come close.
No, but like,
Exactly,
I mean,
like,
just the sense that like you're seeing people performing and there's a sense of like wonder and magic to it. Like, I don't know.
I feel like
I'll have to
that's
actually
much
go
more. There is definitely like, as I've been to like one of the shows, and there was definitely this feeling of like, oh, this is, almost magical, almost like really alluring, and there's like this mystery to it with the music and the performers.
The music is so
but it
good.
also was very refined.
Oh, yeah, good point.
There is...
It doesn't have the sort of slapdash.
Yeah, there is an edginess to carnivals, even like carnivals during the turn of the century.
Well, the problem is carnivals today are almost all edginess and no mystique.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So...
Back then carnivals were both this mix of, something's not quite right with it, and it's kind of edgy with but look at the wonder and mystique and the creativity that goes in it, and then nowadays it's just completely edgy and everything's slapdash
Carnivals today are like a cheap thrill. You go get your corn dog, you play some games, and go on some questionable rides and hope it doesn't kill
rides.
You. Whereas like the carnivals in the past that had your freak shows or just like the grand spectacle that was the circus, it was you were in your small town and suddenly this grand affair made up of like different parts of the world that you were never going to get to see if this circus didn't come to your town. You saw like all these like weird types of people and these performers doing these incredible stunts, and you're just like, you could not have imagined any of that, and now you're like seeing it. It's in your town.
And it's in walking distance. Like, imagine being a kid and you're like, oh my gosh, the carnival's here, and it's in that field that's near here, and you just run there, and you're there, and it's so cool. And then you can go home later, and it's like, and you think to yourself, but it's still out there. And there's that feeling. I've had that feeling when I've stayed in like, this is not super comparable, but like, when I've stayed in like a place where there's a big convention, like when you're in San Diego while Comic-Con is going on, the whole place feels like it's got this like, you leave the event like, but it's still going on, all over the city, that kind of thing.
One of the parts that I really liked was when they were watching the train roll in, and then the tents are like forming and like pulling from the clouds.
Yeah.
That I did really like that part, just because like circus like history stuff, I'm like really, it's like one of the things that I'm actually really into. I forget that I'm really into until like it's brought up, and then I'm like, yeah, the fucking circus, like it was awesome.
I'm on that same page with you though.
I
but like
there have been
like
evenings.
go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm the same way, because like there's been like evenings where I will just Wikipedia like freak shows for like a good hour or so and be like, ooh, who is this famous freak? And then learn about the Hilton sisters and stuff like that. And then also delve into stories behind like Barnum and Bailey and stuff like that. Like,
oh my gosh. I'm just going to put this out there right now, and then you can finish what you're saying. I'm sorry, but I just don't want to leave my brain. We should definitely read Geek Love in the future.
Oh my god.
That one is on my list of ones to read. I went after Caleb told me about it.
I've read it. I'll read it again.
I think what I was trying to say was just the train rolling in was like people would go out just to watch them unload the train, set up the tents, watch the animals come out. So that's why I really liked that part where they're watching the train and whatnot in the book. I also want to plug real quick. There's actually I think it's a 2-part or a 1-part documentary that's on Netflix right now, just called The Circus, that is really good about the circus. I really recommend it. If you like circus history, go check it out.
Oh, okay, I'm down.
I've watched it like 2 times now.
Awesome.
So I got another question by Dovey Does. If you could reverse your age, would you, and to what age? I'm currently at that point in my life where I'm fine with the age I am right now. Like,
I want to be that person who says, "Oh, I'm just 29 and holding," and literally just stay 29.
I want it when I think when I was like 16, I was like, I want to reach 25 and then never get older. I think for me, I wouldn't want to revert in age. Like, I wouldn't want to be younger if I'm still going to live in this, like, same time period.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would like to become younger and, like, relive so many years so that I can be like, okay, not going to waste time with this. I'm just going to start writing now so I have enough time to put out all the stories that I want to put out.
And therein lies the trap of the carnival, because you're still the person you are now.
Exactly, but that's fine because I would.
You're younger. You have a younger body and younger energy, but you have your current maturity and your current work
and I have
ethic.
my current skill sets to do the things that I want to do.
Yeah, there you go.
I know where I'm going to invest my time and money.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. Like, just go back, not like about 5 years or like 6 years, something like that. Just enough that, like, you still look like you do now, but you have the energy that you did of, like, someone in your early 20s.
Right.
And also have that same vigor and, like, it's like, oh, my back doesn't crack all the time anymore. Like,
yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
your metabolism is slightly better. Yeah, actually, okay. Only, like, just a little bit, just, like, 5 years, but,
Just
like...
hold that for a bit.
Yeah, just so, because I look...
Guys, we would fall victim to Mr. Dark so easily.
Oh, yeah, we would.
Yeah.
Obviously, because we're human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
He knows how to prey on humans.
No, it is a brilliant machine. You could become older or younger. And the problem is they're just like, well, don't you want to be 40? And he's like, no, I can't do that. It's like, because then I won't be able to relate to anyone. And it's like, well, what about that just a little bit? Why not just...
Make me 53 instead of 54.
Make it, like, just a little
Shave
younger.
off a couple years, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the temptation. Like, that's clearly, like, again, I'm fine where I'm at, but I think to myself, wouldn't it be funny to actually say, like, no, I'm gonna go back to 29, and I'm just gonna stay 29.
See, Miss Foley, I feel bad for her. Like, this is someone... I think she just wanted to be younger, like, in her 20s, not, like...
All the way back to being a child again?
Yes.
Well, no, I thought she did want to be a child because when she got lost in the mirror maze, she saw herself as a child.
Oh, that's true.
That was my assumption, that you see what you wanted to be in the maze. She saw herself as a little girl, and then maybe when when Jim caught sight of something in there, he saw himself older.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I thought.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think Miss Foley, I think the thing with her, when they find her later under the tree crying and she's a little girl, I don't again, like everyone else, she didn't realize that when she got there, she would look younger, but she wasn't actually going to feel younger, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's still an adult mind inside of a, like, 9-year-old girl's body.
We never see her again either.
That's
her or Mr. Cressetti. They're gone.
That kind of bothered me. I'm like, no, what happened to them? Because you actually follow them and their stories are so tragic. Like, same with, like, with the Mr. Fury. And I was like, but, like, the freaks are freed, right? So what does that mean for him? Like, are they okay? We don't ever get...
They do get to leave, but they all flee.
That's it. Like, they just flee. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what happens.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oh, well. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they can be killed by kindness now, so that's probably a bad thing. Or they were. Or
could they? Or I thought it was just...
Well, I mean, the Dust Witch was killed with kindness, kind of.
She was killed with laughter.
Yeah.
She was killed with a smile carved on a rubber bullet.
Yep.
But clearly
Can
happiness...
we talk about that? How he pretty much smothered this child to death with affection.
Yeah, that was... So, okay, the ending is...
Well, I mean, like, are there any questions concerning the ending? Or should we just finally talk about the ending?
Okay.
Before we let's talk about the ending, because I still want to talk about the theater, because that's just a weird,
Yeah. And
jarring
I think we still
part.
have more questions, at least a couple more.
Yeah, we have a couple
All right,
more.
hold on. Let's do that, and then we want to address the ending.
So there's only two, and I've been skipping around. So I got one last question from username, and where would you rank this book with other Bradbury works?
This is up there with the Halloween Tree is one of my favorites, but then again, when it comes to I gotta broaden my horizons, read more Bradbury, but I think I've read more Bradbury short stories than I have his novels.
Same here. I like a lot of his short stories. Guys, read The Veldt. It's so, like, it's one of those stories where the ending's like, dude, what the fuck?
Right. There's a story I read. I picked up my copy of Driving Blind. There's a story in there called House Divided that I remember reading and sticking with me as a kid. I don't want to say too much about it, but if you look it up and read it, I want to know what people's reactions are, because rereading it now was kind of like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah, he's good at that. It's
a very kind of what the fuck story.
I do like Sound of Thunder, too. That's a pretty good one as well.
There's a story titled, If MGM is Killed, Who Gets the Lion?
Wait, what?
That's a story in the same collection. If MGM is killed, who gets the lion?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Good title.
I actually did read the Martian Chronicles, which is a collection of his short stories. And, I'm trying to think of the ones, it's been so long since I read them. The one that stands out to me is the one where all these people go to Mars and then they meet these people. I guess they're like all black with gold eyes, but then eventually the humans that transfer there become that. Like they kind of adjust to that and they start to like become like all black with golden eyes, something like that. It's been so long, but it's that idea that they see these creatures like Martians as like strangers and opposite of them, but then it turns out they're people as well. They've just adjusted to, which I think that's I love that type of stuff. Like Ray Bradbury, one of the things he's good at is subverting your like expectations.
Yeah.
And the one that actually sticks with me, and I think is actually the first short story I ever read by him was Softly There Will Come,
There Will Come Soft Rains.
And that was horrifying. Well, not horrifying. It was more just like fascinating to me. And one of my favorite descriptions in there, because what happens is it's about a smart house, that's still going on after a nuclear explosion. So, and then just like the house trying to continue on with its day, despite the fact like all the humans are dead.
The humans are dead, and I must bark.
Yes. So, one of the most fascinating images is, he describes, what the front of the house looks like, and it's like this, it's covered in, like, soot, but then there's shapes of the children playing, like outlined on the garage door, and you're just like, oh my god. I mean, that wouldn't happen in, like, that wouldn't actually happen in real life, but, like, as an image, that's frightening. Like... Yeah.
Hey, y'all ever read the October Game?
Oh, you told me about that, and...
This is a very good one. That's another good one. It's probably his most horrifying story that I've ever read, just in the implications. So, just putting it out there.
I'll have to read it. I have to confess that I have not read a lot of Bradbury. So... I'll pass on this question.
That's fine.
Okay.
Do you feel like you're after reading this, do you feel like you'd be more compelled to read additional Bradbury, or?
I think I would. Mm-hmm. I definitely have been. I haven't read any of his sci-fi stuff, and I've been curious about it for a long time. So I feel like I'll finally sit down and maybe read more of his stuff.
I think Bradbury's hit or miss. Actually, the last question kind of fits that. So this one comes from Fight Cook's Red Wolf. And he said, due to Bradbury's writing style, I had to reread some passages multiple times. I'm curious to know if you had similar experiences, and did it detract from some of the more flowing descriptive parts in the story?
I didn't have a problem with it. I don't know if it's just me, but just being able to... I feel like I could breeze through it once I got into the right mindset. I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's hit or miss. It's a hit or miss kind of question. For me, Bradbury's language is fine, and I'm able to follow the sort of like the sort of like stream of consciousness, metaphorical, allegorical descriptions that he uses for different things. So
for me, it was an issue. And I think part of that might have been that I was trying to get through it very quickly. But I do love like flowery, descriptive. Like I do that myself too in writing, where I'm like, I don't need to be describing this so much, but I like to do it for fun. And there were parts where I really enjoyed it in this, and then there were parts where I was like, I don't feel like this is necessary, and I need to reread this, or I'm getting distracted by something else. So there were times where I'm like, okay, cool, I'm here for this. And then there were times where I was like, I could skip this. And I did find myself trying to skim certain parts where I was like, I don't want this right now. Let me get to the next part. And then I was like, no, go back and reread that. So it was hit or miss with me.
Fair enough.
When I first read this about a year ago, there were times where I did have to stop and go back and reread what the heck just happened. But at the same time, I was trying to... I had not read Bradbury in such a long time. Like, the last time I read Bradbury before that was 10 years ago. So my brain was not ready for it. And, like, about a year ago. And then, at that time, I was trying to take it as realistically as possible. Especially since I think at that time I was also reading a lot of realistic stories. And then I'm reading this and I'm like, this doesn't sound realistic at all. But then at a certain point, once I listened to the audiobook, I had no problems after that. Once I finally accepted, no, it's a fantasy. This is Bradbury. He's descriptive. This is just his style. I can get through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, Bradbury, I know for a lot of people is very hit or miss. Like, some people, they're just like, just get to it already. God. And I know plenty of people, just adore his writing and find, like, I know a friend of ours, Sandy, loves his works, just adores it, and he's like, he thinks that he's better than, like, it's his favorite author. One of the cool things I was able to do, was I did get to meet him before he passed away.
So jealous.
And I do have 2 books signed by him, and one of them is, Something Wicked This Way Comes. So that's on my shelf. I'm very happy about that. And I'm using the time just to brag about that. And the one thing I gotta give props for, he is a very fascinating man. Like, the way he talks, like I saw him give, like, a speech, and he's, like, in his 80s at that time, and he's, like, giving the speech, and you could tell that he is a very good orator, and he's very proud of the fact he had his work published in Playboy. He was very proud of that fact, so that says a lot about this man. So.
Yeah.
So that's all the questions that we have.
Cool. Let's talk about the 2 things we wanted to talk about. First of all, the peeping tomboys, except one of them is very interested in what they're peeping. Like, that was interesting to me. I feel that really sums up why Jim wants to be older, because Jim is actually interested in sex. Just putting it out there.
He is ready to explore new worlds.
And Will is not. And, there's one descriptive line in there that always stood out to me for some reason. It's something about they stood before each other naked like shivering horses. I don't know why that stuck with me. It just did. Anyway, that part cracked me up, because I think that really shows that, to me, that's really early in the book where it shows the disparity between Will and Jim.
Well, I think it also marks that they're at this kind of like crossroad between boy and man.
Basically took the words out of my mouth. I was just saying, they're 13. They're at that point, so.
Yeah. So yeah. No, I was laughing my ass off right there. I was like,
yeah. That was me when I first read it too, the theater.
Quotation.
These people really need to close their blinds.
There's some humorous parts. Like, one of my favorite parts is when Charles Holloway is blowing smoke, and you should try this cigar, it's great.
Oh, when he's trying to cover for them in the grate.
Yeah.
And the dust, and he blows it in the dust witch's face. I love that bit.
Yeah. And then the ending.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Okay, I want to talk about how batshit the ending is.
Yeah.
So, starting with the way that they kill the dust witch, which is pretty epic, I gotta say.
So how? So, I mean,
with the fake, they do the whole like bullet trick, and he doesn't work. And yet Charles realizes that laughter, mirth, and joy are basically what hurt these people, which leads me to believe that the dust witch is not as much of I don't know if it would work on the other carnies.
I think,
but it certainly works on the dust witch.
I think she's already so much part of the carnival. She's been there for years where some of the others are just carnies.
But that was metal as hell. I used my own smile to kill you with a bullet.
It's like, that's not a crescent moon on there.
Yeah.
It's my smile. And
bang!
She dies. It's like, whoa!
That bit is great. And that's when things go off the rails. Or off the merry-go-round, as the case may be.
Yeah, because there is that. Well, I wasn't surprised by the point where Jim's on the merry-go-round and, Will's trying to pull him out. That actually was a very... that's actually not a bad climax.
Yeah. You know what I actually thought was interesting about that part was they didn't reverse it. Will or Jim did age a couple of years, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So he's 16 now.
Or he looks it.
And
then Will's hand aged. Because remember, Will's hand was on there, and apparently Will's hand is the hand of a 16-year-old, but Jim's hand is the hand of a 13-year-old because he had his hand out.
That's an interesting detail. I don't know if that ever got explored because they end up breaking the carousel after that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the part we really want to talk about is everything that happens after that with Mr. Dark turning into a 9-year-old boy and then him being hugged to death.
So, yeah.
It's what the fuck?
I'm gonna caress your cheek and just show you all this love.
I'm gonna love you to death. Gracie's gonna bark us to death.
Yeah, it's very... Hold on.
Keep talking. I'm gonna go eat the dog.
I mean, it made sense that, how do you fight evil? How do you fight the evil of the world? You do it by spreading love, by spreading goodwill. So that made sense. It was just, I think for me, what struck me was the visual of holding the kid and just, I don't know, I was just
Yeah, I think maybe at that time, it wasn't a big deal, but now it's
well, no, I don't really mean it in that sense. I don't know, it was just it caught me by surprise.
I think also add that to the juxtaposition where, Will thinks Jim is dead, so he starts crying. And then his dad slaps him
multiple times.
Stop it. You do not cry. We are not giving him in to them. We have to laugh. Be happy. Come on, smile. Sing. Damn it, sing. It's oh my god. This is kind of frightening. Poor Will. I mean, it works. It comes back to life, but still, wow. Yeah. No, we must... It is a weird juxtaposition. I'm going to hug you, and then he disappears. And then Mr. Dark disappears, and he's no! Hugs him to death. And then this time with Will, slaps him.
I've actually, coming back and hearing that bit, I found this part kind of horrifying. I'm he's trying to mourn his dead friend. His dad's nah, stop it, son, laugh. It's funny. We have to do it to save
Don't
him.
even think about him. Jim who? Come and dance with me. Holy shit.
I mean, it worked. Again, Charles Holloway's got a hell of a emotional intuition when it comes to magical realism. Yeah. And plus, everything that's already happened is kind of lend his credence to his theories.
By the way,
But still, the way he has to force Will to do it is, seems so harsh. I'm jeez.
So, also, I find it interesting. So, 9-year-old Mr. Dark comes and tries to trick him and says, oh, my mom is this way. And the way Charles figures it out is he pulls the shirt off of him and he's covered in tattoos, which means that okay, you might age younger, but whatever you've done to your body, that's not going away. So if you have, I have tattoos, yeah, I'm gonna, if I wrote that and I became a young, 9-year-old, I'm gonna be a tattooed
9-year-old. And maybe you're but then if that happens, if you rode the magic carousel and you have these magic tattoos that don't go away when you de-age, well, does that mean they'll magically disappear when you die, like they did on Mr. Dark?
Also, I dyed my hair red. Like, if I age backwards, does my red hair go away, or?
I don't know. This is a good question.
Yeah.
I think, well, it's hard to say because we know his tattoos were magical.
That's
Yeah.
true. That is
And so I feel like those were tied more with his like actual living soul versus his body, I feel.
Good point. Okay, that makes sense. So, like, that, maybe other people, they could go away, but in this case, because it is, I mean, that's how he traps the carnies, so, that's how he controls the carnival, so, yeah, okay, I feel that.
Now, I do like the way that this ends with them all running off together. Despite Charles having a broken left hand.
What I think I enjoyed the most throughout the end of the book was that Charles pretty much took the lead, and like how he's keeping up with the boys. Well, yeah, more or less, pretty much he's keeping up with the boys at the end as they're all like running home and whatnot. Because like you did feel that pity for him in the beginning, like, oh, this old man. And then one of the parts that I really liked was when he climbed up to the window with Will.
Oh, that was great. I love that moment when they climb up together and they're just like holding each other.
Yeah.
That was super sweet. Like that's one of my favorite parts. And then to just kind of to see him at the end and like, yeah, okay, he's old, but he's not gonna worry about that so much anymore. If he wants to run, he's gonna run.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, I think the other profound moment, that's a really good moment between he and Will, and then at the part when Will saves him in the mirror maze, when he's like, no, Dad, and he lights the match and he's just holding him and crying, and what Charles sees is no longer the horrid aged versions of him coming toward him, but he sees dozens of, hundreds of reflections of him, but being held by his son. Like, that's a really profound moment too. And I'm like, oh my God, this shows how love and the spell of love and the spell of joy is what ultimately can kill the carnival and destroy the autumn people.
By the way, that's a great name for them, the autumn people.
The autumn people.
Yeah. So ominous.
By the way, because I typed that up because he's like, oh, I remember hearing a poem about that because I wanted to see if that was an actual. I mean, it's Ray Bradbury's poem, so
it was like a sermon or something that he heard or something, right?
Ray Bradbury made that up. But I looked it up. He wrote a collection of short stories, and the title of that book is called The Autumn People, which is fun because like he also has another book of short stories that he wrote called The Illustrated Man.
Yeah.
So like clearly this book still had a great influence.
There's another collection of stories he wrote called The October Country. Man, this guy loved Halloween like nobody else.
Oh yeah. Like that, this...
I love Halloween. I hope that I can say I love Halloween as much as Ray Bradbury does. Or did.
Best month of the year.
Absolutely. And I think that,
I think this...
I think have we exhausted this? Because man, this book I enjoyed talking about this with you too.
I don't have any to say.
Well, actually, I want to ask, did your like, potential shipness carry you through a bunch of this too? Shipping Jim and Will.
It did. Oh, I did actually. I drew Jim and Will, so I'll send those to you guys. Yes. I'll take a quick picture in a minute.
Oh my gosh, please, yes.
Post that.
But yeah, it was.
Post that on the Creative Horror website as well, if you don't mind.
I'll tweet it on the Darkly Lit Twitter.
Yes.
And they're just little anime sketches of them.
I don't care.
I am so down for this.
It's like when we read. Oh my gosh, the book, the Clive...
Pen Pal?
No, the Clive Barker one.
Oh yeah, I drew that too. I didn't finish that one. I should finish that one.
Thief of Always?
Thief of Always, yeah.
Yeah, then you drew that illustration too from that one you were inspired, and I was like, yes, that one is really good.
I'm down I should
this.
finish that.
I think, I mean, if you do anything else, or are we good?
No, I think we're good. I am glad. Thank you. I'm glad we got to visit this one in October because this is like it's hard for me to think of a better like October book in my opinion. Like this book drips October. This book drips about because again, really early in the book, Halloween came early.
Yes,
that's a great way to sum up the Dark Carnival that comes in. That's awesome.
So, for November, we're gonna read a short story called The Quiet Boy by Nick Antosco. Antosca. Yes, Antosca. I want to make sure I pronounce that right.
Yep.
This one, if you guys don't know what it is, I actually just heard of it, but is actually the basis for the upcoming movie Antlers, which will come out in 2020.
Produced by Guillermo del Toro.
Which is awesome.
Guillermo!
Yeah. But the good news is you can read it for free online. We will put a link for the short story in the show notes, so please read that. It's, from what I got, it's not a long read, so. And we figured, because we still have the rest of October and a lot of Halloween to go with, so I think a short story would be a good time for this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before
October's
I go...
a busy month for us.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. I was going to say before I go, if you want to check out what I've been doing in October, I've begun a blog series called The Fog Report that I'm going to be updating every October, where I talk about local haunts and Halloween attractions in the area that I've visited. Maybe not all of them, but as many as I can. I'm starting with sort of the big ones, but I mean, Kayla and I have already been to one that really set the mood for October with an immersive theater experience. We're going to be going to another one later this month. We've got plans, and we look forward to October every year for this reason. So I wanted to start doing this blog, talk about my experiences. So if you want to check that out, that's on Creative Horror in the Creators Blog section.
As well, UCA will be coming back. We will be, eventually, hopefully soon.
Very soon, hopefully.
Recording the episode where we announce the winners of the Disney Creepypasta writing competition.
Oh, hey, am I going to be in that one?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you will.
Come join us, friends.
I'm ready. I finished reading the story.
Yay!
Yeah, just keep an ear out for all other creative horror stuff as it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have something from Midnight Marinara?
We will have something from Midnight Marinara, an episode written by Alan Chaney that was supposed to have come out last year, but got inevitably delayed until I was able to get all the material for it. But now we have it, so this lost episode is coming out this October. And my plan from this point forward, I'm going to make this clear vocally, is that every October, even if nothing else happens for the rest of the year, there will be a new Midnight Marinara.
Woo!
That's my
Makes
goal.
Halloween even better.
Exactly.
There may be other ones as I see fit throughout the year, but Midnight Marinara as a seasonal show is kind of done. I feel like La Llorona was the logical conclusion for me to reach. I want to explore other projects, but Midnight Marinara is never done. It's not done. It's an anthology show, and so when I find something good to put in that anthology, by God, I will put it in that anthology.
Woo!
So there you go.
Witching Hour, we put out a longer episode than we normally do on just vampires.
It was so good.
We just go off for like 2 hours on vampires.
Vampires are great.
And we are going to try to have one more episode for the month of October, maybe a few days before Halloween, and I'll spoil it now. We're going to apparently there's going to be a TV show where people remake murder houses.
Oh.
What?
So they take houses where murders were committed and flip them, I guess.
Oh my God.
And we're like, wow. Yeah, why not? So we're going to do our kind of own episode on it. We're each going to pick a murder house that we would want to flip and what we're going to do with it. And we'll talk a bit about the murders that happened there. So that's going to be, I guess, our Halloween special.
I am down for this.
This is a great premise. I love this. Oh man, I'm looking forward to hearing this one.
And one last thing from the Witching Hour, we are doing our annual Jack-o'-lantern contest. I think the deadline for it is the 28th, I want to say. So if you love carving pumpkins or can't carve a pumpkin, but you could carve, like, say, a watermelon, because that's allowed in our contest too. Just take a picture and send it in. And there's a cash prize this year. And yeah, I love pumpkins.
You want to be real hardcore, carve a turnip. Be old school.
Yes. That's
Be
what
real old school, yeah.
The last thing I will mention is, hey, if you liked what we read here and you're curious, take a look at the if you can find it, the movie version, the Disney movie version of Something Wicked This Way Comes. Has a bit of a troubled history. Maybe not the best movie, but it's got some neat bits in it, and I think it the way it translates is actually not terrible, so.
I've seen clips, and there's some, like, really great clips, but, there's some parts that are a bit rough, but, it's up to you. So, I think,
That's my recommendation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a BBC radio version of it that's like an hour long that you can find on YouTube as well. I have that. I have that bookmarked so I can listen to it later.
Hell yeah.
I should check that out too.
Absolutely. All right. So yeah, thank you for joining us again for Darkly Lit, and you all have a happy October, okay? Don't let any illustrated men lure you into dark carnivals. Ride the rides, but don't ride the carousel backwards, unless you want to be 29 perpetually. Shall we blow out the candles?
Yep, blow. I specifically the lantern that is in, well, not the lantern, the candle that is in the pump right there, that jack-o'-lantern.
Okay, perfect. Get that one right there.